So, folks, in the interests of me being vigilant about timekeeping for our poor speakers, I'm going to try and start the session as close as possible to time, which is 2 o'clock. So welcome to this session 18. Of course, as I must acknowledge the traditional owners of the country we meet upon, which is the Ngunnawal and Ngambri clans of Canberra and its environments, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and any Indigenous people, First Nations people in the audience or online. So welcome to this session. With no further ado, really, I'm going to start us off, and it is my great pleasure to introduce, as our first of 3 presentations in this session, a presentation by Jessica Begley and Suzy Nunes, Collecting Archivist as Opportunity, Breaking the Rules to Build Relationships and Collect Stories of Those Underrepresented in Collections. I'm going to introduce the speakers very briefly. Their bio notes are in the program and on the app, so I won't be reading them in full. We will then have the presentations, and I will then introduce the next speaker, and we'll roll it on, withholding questions to the end, and we'll have a consolidated 15 minutes worth of questions and discussion at the end. So, to introduce Jessica, who's going to be speaking first. Jessica has a fabulous background as a statutory planner, but has chosen to move to the field of libraries and GLAM, and has an amazing background with many advocacy bodies in the information industry. She currently works as a special librarian in the federal... no, she doesn't. She currently works as a program and engagement librarian for the ACT Heritage Library, working with libraries ACT, community groups and government departments to provide exhibitions, events and programs. Jessica's passionate about access to information, discoverability and innovation. And her colleague Suzy is a joint presenter, and Suzy is the ACT Heritage Archivist, working with ACT Heritage Library in Canberra, where she's been for the last 5 years, but she brings to that role over 25 years' experience, working with organisations such as the Australian Museum, the Australian War Memorial, University of Sydney Archives, St Vincent de Paul, and in private industry. So, with no further ado, I'm going to set the slides up for Jessica and Suzy and invite them to the stage.
Thank you, Jessica. And I'd like to begin by echoing Jessica's acknowledgement of country and pay my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be joining us here today and online. So along with original order, provenance is one of the 2 guiding principles applied by archivists when managing their collections and should be the foundation of all work carried out around appraising, arranging and describing an archival collection. While we all agree that the archives of a person should not be mixed or combined with the archives of another, what happens when we don't have enough information about the creator to assign provenance to that person? It is important to note here that these are not orphan works, as the creator of the work is known. However, individual requests or government mandates imposed to protect the safety or privacy of the creator have been applied. In a busy collecting archive with only 1 qualified archivist managing the collection and only 2 archivists on staff, sometimes it is essential to look beyond the traditional application of provenance to meet the collecting needs of the community and the archive. By recognising the need for a broader, more dynamic definition of provenance, we can collect materials that fill significant gaps and make our collection more representative of the community we serve. By being flexible in this way, we are taking advantage of collecting opportunities that would otherwise be missed should a purist approach to provenance be taken. I will be discussing this in reference to the 2 case studies already introduced by Jessica. Before doing so, I must add that these that in both these examples, traditional collecting pipelines do not exist. Staff at the ACT Heritage Library have learnt that work needs to begin early in these types of donations to establish trusting relationships, both with the organising bodies and with the donors. This can often take months, if not years. In both these examples, due to the sensitive nature of the material and stories being collected, there was a need to empower the donor and to make them feel comfortable. This included much liaison with organising bodies, as well as numerous phone calls with individual donors concerned about how their donation will be used. In 2019, the ACT Heritage Library began work with Gen S Stories to collect digital stories created by members of the ACT community. As previously mentioned by Jessica, Gen S Stories opens the possibilities of storytelling to people and communities who may have never had the opportunity to tell their stories and be heard. These stories were collected by the ACT Heritage Library in a safe and ethical process that empowered the donor and allowed them to maintain control over the information they provided, as well as what was presented to the public. Many of the participants are members of communities where remaining safe is a constant concern, and anonymity is often essential to daily survival. By collecting the stories of these individuals, we are acknowledging their lived experiences and allow them to share that experience, not only in their own words, but in their own terms. One of the ACT Heritage Library's favourite catchphrases is "Find yourself in the ACT Heritage Library." By making these stories discoverable in our catalogue, we are allowing others with similar lived experiences and backgrounds to find themselves reflected in the collection also. Deeds of gift for the Gen S Stories collections were coordinated by the company's founder, Jenny Savigny. However, we spent a lot of time crafting the communications about copyright and permissions with Jenny prior to her contacting participants. Jenny pre-filled most of the donor details in our deed of gift form for the donors, but they were free to determine their own restrictions in terms of access, copyright, reproduction permissions, and special conditions. While a vast majority of donors were happy to make their stories publicly available without restriction, there were a few that did specify certain restrictions. Examples can be seen on this slide. The restrictions were displayed in the catalogue as seen in this slide. We were happy to accommodate these restrictions, especially as the vast majority related to name restrictions. While specific identification details may be lacking in the catalogue record for some of the items, provenance is known for each of the participants by the ACT Heritage Library. It is important to state, however, that there was a small group of individuals who decided not to donate, preferring to keep their digital stories private. We were disappointed, but hope that the experience of other donors will lead to these decisions being reversed in the future. Regarding the Red Cross Humanitarian Settlement Program artworks, staff at the ACT Heritage Library were forced to make decisions around provenance due to government-mandated de-identification and privacy requirements. The artworks came to us as part of a small display of artworks created by recently arrived refugees in art therapy classes. While no physical items were collected following the exhibition, a decision was made to produce high-resolution scans of the artworks and to add those scans and the stories that went along with them to the catalogue. In a sense, what we have collected is a representation of the exhibition itself, including the intellectual property of the artists, their artworks, and the stories that inspired the piece. As a result of de-identification mandates imposed by the Department of Home Affairs, a decision was made to assign provenance to both the Department of Home Affairs, who fund the program, and the ACT division of the Australian Red Cross, through which the program is delivered, rather than the individuals who created them. And that can be seen on that record under the creator field. Information about the relationship between the record's creators and the Red Cross Humanitarian Settlement Program have been documented and preserved in the collection management system and provides evidence of how the records were created and used, but does not include information identifying the person who created them. A brief biography of is also included for each creator, but again, there is little or no information to identify them. The moral rights of the works have been attributed to a pseudonym for each artist. And that can be seen here in the record for the individual artwork, where the pseudonym is displayed under the creator field. As a collecting archive, the ACT Heritage Library aims to be fully representative of the community we serve, the taxpayer who funds us, and the history and development of the city in which we live. When making decisions around whether to collect the artworks, we considered both moral rights as well as copyright. Moral rights refer to the rights of the artist to be attributed as the creator of the work. By de-identifying the works, we are running the risk of the artist being falsely attributed. Australian law states, and I quote, "The moral right of attribution is the legal right of a creator to be named as the creator of the copyright material in the manner that they want. A creator may use a pseudonym or be anonymous if they wish," end quote. This applies to both the artworks as well as the digital stories. By providing the ACT Heritage Library with the preferred name or pseudonym, they are retaining their moral rights to the work they have created. If we were to apply provenance in its traditional pure form, these records may not have been considered in the first place. When applying the principle of provenance during appraisal, if the creator cannot be identified, many archivists would decide against collecting the material due to concerns relating to copyright. This has been the case in several collecting institutions where I have worked. Why collect something you are unable to provide access to? By applying this to all offers of donation, where the creator is not known or cannot be easily identified, archivists are running the risk of removing that record from the memory of the society in which they were created. Appraisal determines which records are kept and which are not. What archivists choose to collect determines whether the memory is truly representative or complete. The historical or social implications of those decisions may never be known. By making these exceptions and respecting donors' concerns around privacy, the ACT Heritage Library is providing people who traditionally may not trust governments with a renewed sense of confidence. By providing donors with the power to decide what information is collected and what is made known to the public, we are empowering them. Through building trusting relationships, participants are given a positive experience of interacting with a government organisation in the ACT. By building and maintaining these relationships, the ACT Heritage Library anticipates collecting opportunities well into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica and Suzy.